Welcome everybody, delighted to see some old friends joining us and some new friends as well. Those of you who know me already, I'm Clinton Wingrove, and you'll know that performance management is one of my passions. And yet in most organizations, it's round about this time of year that January catches us by surprise. We're all panicking to get the governance processes of appraisal completed. We've got pay reviews coming up, and we're hoping to get performance plans for next year done in some cases by the end of March. And as you all know, I believe in the governance processes that most organizations have, but they're not what drives performance improvement. And in one of the earlier sessions, we shared with you our model of performance management. But actually, there are 7 components, starting with and not least setting direction. What is it as an organization we do to communicate to people what the priorities are? Why do we exist? What's our vision, our mission, our values, and our strategy? And then there's the issue of clarifying roles. And so often I find job descriptions are only ever used during the recruitment process, when actually they're the agenda for performance conversations during the week, during the day, during the year. And then there's planning and aligning performance, which again, how sad that in many organizations, it's okay to complete the plan by the end of March. And I've got the philosophy that says never start the day until the plan is finished. That also should apply to the year. So today we're going to be looking at planning and aligning. And then there's monitoring and measuring coming up in our webinar in January. Then enabling and enhancing. What is it we do to improve performance? And so often organizations focus on the difficult conversations. How sad is it that performance management is generated into conversations about poor performance? What we should be doing is focusing on bringing out the best in people. And then assessing and evaluating, what's the difference? And organizations frequently compensate for poor quality data by forcing distribution. So we'll talk about the difference between assessing and evaluating. And then rewarding and recognition brings us back to clarifying roles, and often refer to this as the performance management engine. So what is that? It's a set of processes via which individual performance is influenced. And you'll notice I talk here, and we'll come back to it in just a second, that performance isn't just what people produce. It's also how they produce it and the speed at which they're growing and developing. And we covered in one of the earlier sessions how if we're really going to optimize performance, we need to address some very fundamental needs. And as we move into an increasingly digital world, increasingly remote, what we're finding is the need for these 4 things is also growing. The level of angst, the level of anxiety, the level of short-term absences is still at a highly unacceptable level, and in many countries still increasing. And what we know is people want clarity, and performance management epitomizes the processes where clarity is critical. People want clarity around what the expectations of them are. They want clarity around how their performance is perceived. But they also want assurance. The unrest in the world, and we're seeing unrest on a national scale. We're seeing unrest in terms of people's cost of living escalating. We're seeing unrest with relatively low levels of unemployment. And we're seeing unrest being caused by anxiety associated with the fears that AI will take jobs away. People can't be assured of their positions, but what they can be assured of is that managers actually have their backs. That as managers, we are doing everything we can to ensure that people are well looked after, or as the acronym suggests, that they're cared for. And people also want recognition. Yes, of course, we need to be able to handle those rare, difficult conversations. But I find increasingly The world is becoming abusive. We're seeing this in social media. Research is indicating that lack of empathy is partly the cause of it. But people are not getting the level of recognition that they want. And of course, when we were largely working face to face, that recognition was often automatic as we bumped into people. We now have to be more deliberate. So what are we doing to recognize, and in particular to recognize good performance in its many forms? And the one thing I've learned over the years is that even our worst performer typically does quite a few things well. And then lastly, people are looking for empathy. And we seem to be losing empathy through that social disconnect that we're experiencing with many of us working with people remotely. We share with you a variety of documents which may be useful to you, quick tips, guides, information sheets, checklists, etc. You will be getting this slide deck at the end of the session. It will include the QR code and the bit.ly link. So again, feel free to take note of those. So today's topic, planning and aligning performance. And in many organizations, we have the corporate process. And that process may require people to set 5 goals. It may seek them to set 3 specific objectives. You may specify that they have to have one objective which is around diversity and inclusion. You may specify they have to have one around safety, health and safety. You may have an organization that operates KPIs or OKRs. I'm not concerned today about your corporate governance. I'm thinking here about planning and aligning performance in its widest sense. As managers, what do we need to consider when we're working with individual members of staff whose performance we are responsible for? What do we need to consider when we're planning and aligning their performance as we go forward? And that's a process that's an ongoing. It's not something that's typically episodic.